Hey there everyone, it's Mr. Lane here to introduce you to art from the Stone Age. So take good notes and let's begin. Feel free to check out this Flintstones shorts of Fred and Barney bowling. Hopefully you find it funny. This is a abbreviated timeline of the Paleolithic and Neolithic periods. About 30,000 BCE, we find some of the oldest known art objects. And the term art for this context refers to objects modified by human intervention. That included sculptures and paintings. For some of the terminology, paleo means old and neo means new. Lithos means stone. Around 9000 BCE, we transitioned from the Paleolithic to the Neolithic period. Paleolithic Art Key Ideas. Earliest works are cave paintings and portable sculptures like shell necklaces and human animal forms made from ivory or clay. Assumptions are made about the meaning of prehistoric works. Also, precision of dating was impossible for this era. We are not sure of the function or purpose for these works because we did not have written records to explain. The post and lintel system was used, for example, to build the massive monuments found at Stonehenge. The context is largely unknown, so instead focus on original location and content. An example of content would be the animals depicted. Here are some key terms we will discuss throughout the lecture. Here is a list of all the required artworks we will cover during this lecture. Here is our first art piece, Nude Woman, also known as Venus of Willendorf, from Willendorf, Austria, approximately 28,000 to 25,000 BCE, made from limestone, and it's about 4 inches high. When archaeologists first encountered these statues of women, they called them Venus after the Greco-Roman goddess of beauty and love, whom later artists usually depicted nude. This, however, is inaccurate and misleading. You could also think about the term Venus as symbolism, representing an abstract idea. The female nude is a popular theme throughout art history, which we will explore further in the future. Known as one of the oldest and most famous Paleolithic female images, the form we see here is a cluster of almost ball-like shapes, the result in part of the sculpture's response to the natural shape of the stone selected for carving. Some art historians claim that she has a cap on her head that you see divided into 7 sections, the number 7 being symbolic. The anatomical exaggeration has suggested to many observers that this and similar statues served as fertility referring to being able to give childbirth. That was important because they ensured the survival of the species. Key sites of the Paleolithic and Neolithic periods are found in southern France and northern Spain. But we also found artifacts in Asia and Africa. New discoveries cause archaeologists to reevaluate their previous findings and assumptions. Examples of Paleolithic art. Art of this kind often puzzled early discoverers because it depicted animals known to have been extinct in southern Europe for thousands of years, like the woolly mammoth, the Irish elk, and aurochs, to name a few. The discovery of Paleolithic paintings in the cave at Altamira, Spain, 1879. An amateur archaeologist accidentally found the first known examples of cave paintings at Altamira, Spain in 1879. He was exploring a cave on his estate where he had previously collected specimens of flint and carved bone. Maria, his young daughter, was with him, and the child was the first to notice, due to her lower vantage point, the shadowy forms of bison. Although Marcelino was sure the paintings were prehistoric, skeptical archaeologists pronounced them forgeries. It was only after the French discovered similar paintings, partially obscured by millennia-old mineral deposits, that the Altamira drawings were pronounced authentic. Today, they are recognized as one of the most spectacular finds in art history. Keep this thought in mind. Some areas within the cave were hard to reach, and as a result, not many people would have been able to see the art. Every one of the Altamira bison is in profile, whether alive and standing or curled up on the ground, probably dead, although some scholars dispute this. One suggestion is that these bison are giving birth. Modern critics often refer to the Altamira animals as a group of bison. They seem almost to float above viewers' heads, like clouds in the sky. Or was the painter providing an aerial view of the dead? The painting has no setting, no background, no indication of place. Perhaps they were painted at different times, spanning generations, and each is as complete and informative as possible. The tools they used, they made brushes from twigs and reeds and used flat stones as palettes. You're going to be shown two images, and as you look at the two images, there are three questions here for you to reflect on and respond to. Here are the two images you will be comparing. Scholars debate which of these paintings is older. What are your thoughts? Let's define a few key terms before we continue with our analysis of the paintings. Naturalistic is the depiction of realistic subjects in natural settings. Abstract is art that does not attempt to represent an accurate depiction of a visual reality, but instead uses shapes, colors, forms, and gestural marks to achieve its effect. Optical is something seen from a fixed viewpoint. Conceptual is the representation of the fundamental distinguishing properties of a person or subject, not the way a figure or object appears in space and light at a specific moment. One of the most famous cave findings is the one from Lascaux, France. More than 17,000 years ago, prehistoric painters covered many of the walls of this cave with images of animals. The main chamber, nicknamed the Hall of the Bulls, is an unusually large space and easily accessible, but many of the paintings at Lascaux and in other caves are almost impossible to reach. The other major site of cave paintings in Lascaux, France, was also discovered by accident. In 1940, two French boys were out for a walk when their dog suddenly disappeared. They found him in a hole leading to a cave covered with thousands of engravings and paintings. Sealed in the dry underground chambers, the paintings had survived virtually intact for more than 17,000 years. Once loads of visitors entered the cave, however, moisture and carbon dioxide accumulated underground, and fungi crept up the cave walls, concealing the images. Since 1963, the cave at Lascaux has been closed to the public. The caves where paintings have been found are not likely to have served as shelter, but rather were visited for ceremonial purposes. This does provide earliest evidence of the human capacity to interpret and give meaning to our surroundings. We will examine paintings from the Hall of Bulls and actual gallery. Hall of the Bulls, left wall in the cave at Lascaux, France, approximately 15,000 to 13,000 BCE, and our largest bull is about 11 feet long. We are not sure why the artist decided to depict these animals. We see the bulls and horses, which are the most commonly depicted. However, these were not diet staples in the Old Stone Age. We are not sure if it's a herd. The immediate impression that a modern viewer gets of a rapidly moving herd is almost certainly false. The term herd consists of several different species of animals of various sizes moving in different directions. These differences in style and technique also suggest that different painters created the images at different times, perhaps over the course of generations. Composite view or twisted perspective is where we see, for example, the bull in front of us. Its head is in profile, but its horns are seen from the front. The purpose was descriptive. It was important to see the horns clearly because they are part of the concept of bull. Rhinoceros, wounded man, and disemboweled bison, painting in the well of the cave at Lascaux, France, approximately 15,000 to 13,000 BCE. The bison is 3 feet 8 inches long. Modern viewers can be sure of nothing. But if the painters placed the figures beside each other to tell a story, this is evidence for the creation of a complex narrative composition. Paintings of animals appear throughout the cave complex at Lascaux, including in the so-called axial gallery, which features a representation of a running, possibly pregnant horse surrounded by what may be arrows or traps. Man, as opposed to woman, makes one of the earliest appearances in the history of art. Beneath the rhinoceros's tail are 2 rows of 3 dots of uncertain significance. At the right is a bison, also facing left, but with less realistic proportions, probably the work of someone else. Between the 2 beasts is a bird-faced mask, perhaps. But the hunter's gender is explicit by the prominent penis. The position of the man, however, is ambiguous. Yet, it is important to remember that even if the painter or painters intended to tell a story, very few people would have been able to read it. The mural in a deep shaft is very difficult to reach and could have been viewed only in flickering lamplight. The bird object could be a spear thrower made of antler found around 1940 in a separate cave, but we were uncertain. What is the meaning of these images? Here we have 5 theories, the first one being decoration. However, this does not account for the inaccessibility of the caves. Next, hunting magic. Some believe that these objects have magical properties in order for the people to bring the animals under control. Rituals and dances were also presumed to be performed. This would be done to improve the luck of the community. They also have been seen as teaching tools to instruct new hunters. And the last theory is the food creation, where it's important to ensure the survival of herds on which people depended on for food, supply, and clothing. Next object is a water-worn pebble resembling a human face from South Africa, approximately 3 million BCE, reddish-brown jasperite, and approximately 2 inches wide. Is this pebble art? For art historians to classify an object as an artwork, a found object such as the Makapanskat pebble, it must have been modified by human intervention beyond mere selection. And this was not. In 1925, explorers of a cave at Makapanskat in South Africa found this pebble, which bears an uncanny resemblance to a human face. It was not until 3 million years later, around 40,000 to 30,000 BCE, when large parts of northern Europe were still covered with glaciers during the Ice Age, that humans intentionally manufactured sculptures and paintings. Human with feline head from Hallenstein-style Germany, approximately 30,000 to 28,000 BCE. Mammoth ivory, 11 inches high. Let's define composite creature and shaman first. Composite creature are creatures with animal heads and human bodies. and vice versa. A shaman is a religious leader who gains access to the world of spirits through trances. These sculptures were found in 1939 in fragments inside a cave at Hallenstallstadel in Germany. The statue was carved from the tusk of a woolly mammoth. Because the subject of the work is not something that the Paleolithic sculptor could see, he had to use his imagination. So this was something that existed only in his mind. The ivory figure represents a human, whether male or female cannot be determined, with a feline, maybe lion, head. Some scholars identify the animal-headed humans as sorcerers, whereas others describe them as magicians wearing masks. Another interpretation is that these are human-headed animals as humans wearing animal skins. Others think that the images of composite animal humans reproduce the vision seen by shamans during trances. Aurochs, horses, and rhinoceroses, wall painting in Chauvet Cave, France, approximately 30 to 28,000 or 15 to 13,000 BCE. In December 1994, a French team led by Jean-Marie Chauvet discovered Paleolithic mural paintings. French scientists used radiocarbon dating of the charcoal and the black pigments. The test revealed that the mural paintings dated around 34,000 to 32,000 BCE and were much older than any previously discovered. Limited to charcoal drawings, moreover, the ages obtained by carbon-14 do not correspond to exact calendar years and thus require correction. This unexpectedly early date immediately forced scholars to reevaluate the scheme of a stylistic development. The painters depicted the horns of the aurochs naturalistically, one behind the other, not in the twisted perspective normally used in Paleolithic art. So the assumption that Paleolithic art evolved from simple to more sophisticated representation is wrong. Now, we have made it to the Neolithic Revolution. Once the glaciers receded, the climate grew more temperate, and the Paleolithic, or Old Stone, period was replaced by the Neolithic, New Stone Age. Early human beings emerged from caves to become herdsmen and farmers, and with a now secure food supply, they began crafting the first monumental sculpture. Human beings began to domesticate plants and animals and to settle in fixed homes. Wandering hunters settled down to organized community living in villages surrounded by cultivated fields. Anyone who has ever observed the construction of modern buildings, where we see cranes, bulldozers, all those other heavy-duty equipment, machinery, can't help but wonder how prehistoric men managed to erect their monoliths. In the case of Stonehenge, apparently hundreds of men dragged stones weighing up to 50 tons for 24 miles. Here we have a view of Stonehenge, Salisbury Plain, England, 2550 to 1600 BCE. And the circle is 97 feet in diameter. Trilithons are 24 feet high. This is the post and lintel system used. As you can see, it's a basic architectural form. Here's some cool reconstructions of Stonehenge. To finish your study of Stonehenge, watch these 2 videos. Thanks for watching, everyone. Everything you can imagine is real. Pablo Picasso.